Krishnakumar Natarajan is the managing partner at Mela Ventures, previously co-founder of Mindtree with 39 years of experience in IT. He's been a key figure in digital transformation and tech innovation in the Indian services industry. Krishnakumar mentors and invests in over 30 startups, offering expertise in market strategies and fundraising. Under his leadership, Mindtree's market cap reached $2.5 billion, earning him awards like Ernst & Young's Entrepreneur of the Year and Business Today's CEO of the Year. In this episode, we'll explore the significant opportunities AI offers to the services sector with Krishnakumar's insights.
Tell us what's happening around you that excites you the most today.
No, in terms of sheer opportunities, I think what excites is really the way in which we've seen technology getting adopted much more quickly. Because even if I go back 25 years, internet almost took 20 years to get into mainstream. Whereas if you take the next one, which really brought technology close to individuals, the mobile phone, probably took 15 years to get into mainstream. But what is talked about in terms of technology, be it AI or Gen AI or AGI, I think the adoption cycle times are crashing phenomenally. And in a way, as individuals, we are able to quickly see the benefit of some of these technologies. But I think that's also an exciting global business opportunity. That's really what is exciting me more.
Got it. And, when you say there is this big opportunity with the crashing timelines in adoption of AI, what do you see as, there's plenty of services companies in India. What do you see as the opportunity for the services industry to piggyback on what's happening in the AI world?
I'd like to make it more impactful by sharing some of my own personal experiences. When we launched Mindtree in 1999, the opportunity in what you call the outsourced offshore business was still very large. But what we realized was there's no point building another company because there's a big opportunity which is almost a lookalike. But we just found customers, particularly large enterprises, really not getting their act right in terms of how do they leverage the internet to solve some real business problem. So we really position Mindtree as a services company, but really helps enterprises build large internet applications because that we saw as really a key need for the customer. Looking back today, that may not look something which is more complex, but in the late 90s or early 2000 when we really did it, I think it did deliver a big business impact. Just to think of a customer who stayed with Mindtree for 25 years is Avis Rent-A-Car. So Avis used to book their cars through a typical contact center, and each reservation was costing them about $2.50 to make that reservation happen through a call center based approach. When we told them you could build the same application on the internet and make customers really come in and book cars, and each reservation will probably cost you 30-40 cents, they first didn't believe it. They wanted to experiment it with a small specific segment taken over, and today that's the way they book cars. Call center is probably less than 5% of their bookings. And it dramatically shifted both the customer experience and the cost of doing it. So which is where I believe some of the new technologies will also transition to. Just like internet was never a business for enterprises to think in terms of, and a whole services ecosystem got built around that. Some of the new developments in technology, be it AI or Gen AI, I think also provides huge opportunities for a services ecosystem to get built.
Later today, I'm actually meeting a bunch of services companies that are going to be focused on AI. Mm-hmm. If I had to take a message from you to them about what they should be wary of, what they should explore to sort of identify the right opportunities and the right kind of opportunities for their businesses, any inputs, advice you have for the next gen of entrepreneurs trying to build services companies around this?
No, here again, from my experience, what I've seen is that customers really need outside expertise for them to navigate through the cobweb of some of the noise around new technologies. This happened in internet. It happened in the whole digital transformation space. But what is most critical is to just listen to the customer on what their problems are and be very focused in terms of how are you demonstrating that you're solving a real business problem. What that means is in today's context, you just can't build a technology solution for technology's sake. It really needs to demonstrate the business value it's creating, which means as service providers beyond the technology expertise, you also need to know the domain. You also need to have a point of view of how are you using technology to solve that problem. So my advice to people would be pick very sharply what is the problem you're solving. Think through how you're genuinely using technology to solve that problem and really work on it in a very collaborative way with customers. again, going back to an example of what I thought worked in Mindtree, was that we saw the potential of digital very early. Probably in 2010, 2011, we launched a separate business unit for digital, and we were the first to do that. And one of the key evolution was that we said, hey, the whole digital transformation is an unknown issue for the customer. Equally, we didn't have all the capabilities. So the first thing we said was we will really use our expertise in certain areas to help customers transform. Retail and consumer products was the first thing which I addressed. Travel and transportation was the second area which we really addressed. The second thing we said was when customers themselves aren't clear how to solve a problem, we created co-creation physical infrastructure in some of our main markets like New York, London, which are called digital pumpkins. The idea was that the customer will come with a problem statement. We put together a group of experts, UI experts, domain experts, technology infrastructure experts, who along with the customer team over a 1-week workshop approach will really build the initial proof of concept on how to solve the problem. We'll jointly take that to the business, and once business approves it, then we'll start scaling it. So what I see work as an operating model is that in new technologies, while you might know little more than the customer, many times you learn at the customer's cost. So it needs to be in a collaborative mode where you co-create the solution along with their customers. So create operating frameworks which will help you do that co-creation along with the customers. And that's what really delivers measurable business value to the customer.
When you talked about the digital pumpkin and the experiments and the sort of lab type environment where customers come with problems, it hits me that every large company now has these innovation-focused teams.
Yes.
Is it a good idea to partner with the innovation teams, or do we go directly to like the business P&L owners to identify problems? What, in your experience, what's worked? Because it feels like there's a lot of noise, experimentation. We don't know which of it will actually lead to getting what you built for the customer to production and then growth on top of it.
I think that's an extremely good question, and we have seen both types, at least in my experience. What we would many times as a part of the sales process take a call is, hey, is this innovation group something which is nice to have as far as the company? Who's really championing that? Do they have the executive authority to really sort of push things? There are some companies where, to be honest, I think the innovation team is really something which is there. If something comes out of it, it's good. If something doesn't come out of it, also thing. In which case, clearly, then we start targeting the business. So it's very important to understand the political landscape within the organization on where is it that the economic buyer, the ability to invest dollars is available, and then back that as an option. In many organizations, we've seen the innovation team is strongly supported by somebody who really has the authority to fund those experiments. Maybe the chief digital officer, the chief data officer. They have the clout to support an experiment which probably costs maybe $250,000. They have the ability to do that, in which case you go through the innovation. But there are organizations where the business is really frustrated that I'm not able to find a solution, and they want things to move quick and fast. They want to break things fast. There you really sort of go with the business user.
And with new technology, there's always, customers asking for all sorts of things that may or may not be possible yet. They have a dream, a vision for what is the ultimate sort of end state they want to be in. And then there is what is possible with what's out there today. How do you suggest entrepreneurs navigate all of the hype around the space versus what's actually possible? And while delivering on what's possible, given this is a new space, again, I'm sure there are things to keep in mind around data, around security, around making sure the experiment you're doing with this large customer doesn't turn out into a PR nightmare for the customer. What learnings do you have that you can share with folks on this front?
See, what we always used to think in terms of what we call as a phased approach. And again, I'm saying that in today's context, it has become probably 10x more complex than what it used to be even 4-5 years back. Because fundamentally, to really leverage some of these new technologies, I think there needs to be a certain level of maturity within the organization, be it data or be it even images, because increasingly, I think the application of AI or Gen AI is just not in terms of data, but it's probably across images, and it might extend to maybe other content creation within the organization itself. And to be fair, I think customers many times or the business, they read a lot about or they hear from others, and their expectations sometimes may not even be fully possible to meet with what is the current state and the level of maturity of these technologies. So it's very important to set simple milestones which you agree with the customer. Say that, hey, this sort of a thing, yes, I think all of us should experiment, but there is a certain level of risk and potential possibilities that we may not meet that goal. But let's proceed on it on a stepwise basis. Let's do small experiments which demonstrate to you that the direction of travel is right, and we are progressing towards it, rather than just trying to go one big bang approach. One of the things which we have seen work extremely well in these scenarios is to really adopt a phased approach, having intermediate milestones which are certain that with a 90% probability you will meet that, and get that commitment stage-wise before you try and address a big bang approach.
What about using AI internally within service organizations? What are you seeing people do? How are they benefiting from the changes in AI internally?
No, I think there is a phenomenal level of opportunities. Starting from even in terms of lead generation, I'm sure most service companies today have a good feel in terms of what is my ideal customer profile. As long as you have the parameters, I think it's easy to build a system where you probably scout around not just the 5,000 organizations are listed, but possibly across the millions of organizations, and who are those who fit those ideal customer profile, and then really target it towards them could be one application in terms of doing it. Because see, fundamentally, again, if you look at the whole services market, till now, a lot of us have just approached customers, probably the top 5,000 customers, because that's where really our GTM approach has found to be cost effective. Because the moment you start reaching the 10,000, 20,000 customers, the scale and the cost of selling never really works out as a business model. So I think starting from GTM, where you can, in a way, try and crash your cost of customer acquisition, to internally, I think every organization has struggled in terms of saying that, hey, how do I deploy the right person at the right project at the right time? It's been always a nightmare. I think that's where I think some of these current technologies like AI can really help in terms of ensuring, because see, at the end of the day, the services business is not a very complex business. I think your value comes in terms of identifying the right problem for the customer. How do you use technology to help them see real business benefits? At the same time, how do you leverage your capacity in a most cost-efficient manner to deliver that? Because earlier systems are all what I call very, I would say, it had tight sort of guardrails around it. You have a person who has a certain capability, you could only deploy him with a customer because that person is getting, I'm just saying, 100% billed to a customer. But in today's model, I think you can evolve systems where if you have a very key, I'm just saying, a data scientist who has experience in terms of data sets relating to small house financing, I think the ability to leverage him 30% in one project and probably 30% in another project, and probably spend the next 20% in building accelerators which could help you do that service deployment much more faster. Today, I think with technology, you can really go to that level of sophistication. And interestingly, there are companies which are trying to build SaaS products which really address that.
Completely agree that there's a lot of new models emerging in how companies work with, services teams work with customers as well. And all of them have their own internal platforms, internal accelerators, helping them achieve different kinds of outcomes. Do you think the whole, I don't know what the balance is today in terms of charging for outcomes versus charging for hours billed, etc. Do you see any shift happening on that front, given how technology is changing?
See, I think with the rapid change in technology, to be honest, as service providers, it's very difficult to commit an outcome. I wouldn't certainly recommend saying that, hey, based on the outcome you pay us, because at the end of the day, I think there is a mutual exploration which is happening, which is beneficial both for the service provider and for the customer. But it's important to evolve models where, based on the impact which it has, there is a gain sharing model. Like again, as I got into the VC ecosystem, I see some models there can really come to the services ecosystem. Like in a VC ecosystem, there is a minimum hurdle rate which you commit to your limited partners or putting in their money. Beyond that, the gains are shared between both the general partner and the LPs. So I'm saying, why should that not apply in a services model where if the customer gets a certain benefit, yes, he retains a majority of that, but the services partner gets, I think, and then clearly the objectives are aligned. The service provider is also working towards saying, how do I ensure that there is a higher probability that the services company or the customer will really get the benefits of what they're really intending to get.
Let's go back to AI in the enterprise. And I'm a service provider scouting for specific opportunities, etc. How do you typically size the problem and size the market that you are focused on. Let's say you in 2010 you started the whole digital practice because you saw the opportunity. How did you go about saying, okay, this is the size of the opportunity, let's go and chase this problem?
See, my whole thing on that is sometimes we've all got influenced by the TAM and SAM and so on. To be honest, I don't think there is a TAM problem here at all. Because honestly, if the traditional outsourcing market in India has grown to close to $300 billion, I think the opportunity here is a multitude of that. By a simple comparison, I think the outsourcing market really addresses typically what are budgets controlled by just the CIOs alone. And that varies within organizations. If you take a financial services business, it could be 4-5% of revenues, whereas traditional so-called old age industries spend probably 1%, 1.5%. So you're addressing only that percentage of the market and you need to get. And that business has grown to a $300 billion market. But today I see in enterprises, clearly the process of decision-making on tech has really got democratized. While some parts of the infrastructure relating to security or how do you store and process your data or cloud is still with the CIO, I think the chief data officer clearly has a set of budget. The chief marketing officer has a set of budget. So fundamentally, what used to be addressing 1-1.5% of an enterprise market today has probably grown to 6-7%. So by just simple math, I think this market is much, much larger than the traditional IT services, which is why I believe that in about a decade, the AI services market will certainly be at least the size of the Indian IT services outsourcing market today, which is 300 billion. That should be the minimum. I certainly think it can probably be a couple of times even more than that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, KK. This has been very insightful to hear you. Any final thoughts you want to share with the audience?
No, I think it's a very, very interesting space and I really enjoyed this discussion, Sri. What I think entrepreneurs need to think of is, I think the size of the market, I don't think is a constraint. What is critical is that how do you build a position where the customer sees you as an expert? Because more and more customers don't want to just deal with people who say, hey, I have so many people who know AI. They want you to come with a solution mindset saying, hey, I think you have a last mile logistics problem. And this is how I think I leverage some of the current technologies to deliver a business benefit to you. So it's important to build a certain sense of what you're an expert in. How are you going to, in a way, co-create with the customer a solution which will really deliver measurable business outcomes to that. So being focused is very, very critical. Building the right partnerships is also very, very critical because this is again not a space where it's a winner-take-all business. I think there's an opportunity for everybody because the size of the pie itself is so large. I think you need to create the right partnerships to deliver a sustainable business outcome for the customer.
Amazing. I think the same advice is something we always hear on the SaaS side as well, that if you go too wide too early,
yes,
try to be everything for everyone. It's not going to help you win, but if you find the right wedge early on and say, hey, here is the kind of customer for whom I'm going to solve problems. Here is my advantage in that space. Even for a services company now, given the complexity of AI, I'm sure there is like very specific IP that they can bring to the table.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Alongside the services, which puts them in a better position.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Super. Thank you so much, KK, for joining us.
Thanks, Sri. Really been a pleasure.